Hello. Happy Star Wars Day. Today I'm going to do something I really haven't done before. I'm going to talk about movies. And by that I mean I'm actually going to kind of talk about movies that I just really like. I have talked about certain movies in the past. Some of them I've looked in a very positive light, some in a negative. But I just want to make something where it's overall very positive. And I want to call this Film Talk. And the first movie I'm going to talk about is Foxcatcher. I know I said a happy Star Wars Day because today is May the 4th. And I will later today watch Star Wars. But I thought, why not just talk about a movie that I like? And I chose Foxcatcher because I feel like that's a movie that, while critics liked it, and I can see why, first off, the man who made it, Bennett Miller, directed Capote and Moneyball. Both are great films. And in this film, Steve Carell and Channing Tatum, as well as Mark Ruffalo, but those two in particular, give the best performances of their career, and quite possibly ever, that they will ever give. Obviously, it's possible they'll be better in other films, but at least at this moment in time, to me, they were all phenomenal. And this film, it got noticed a lot by the award circuit, and yet it seemed to really just kind of fade away by the time the big award shows came. I know when it was at the Cannes Film Festival, it says it right on the Blu-ray. It won Best Director. Bennett Miller won Best Director. It was nominated for the Palme d'Or, which is the ultimate prize a film there could get. But they normally give the Palme d'Or to films that would have a better chance there, as opposed to something like Foxcatcher, which would do very well America-wise, like in the sense of awards, because some of the films that are at the Cannes Film Festival probably do very either poorly or would not get recognized at all at some of the awards shows, like the Academy Awards or Golden Globes. And the thing is, like, it's like by the time it came out, and for the limited release in November and wide release in January, all the buzz seemed to be virtually gone. I mean, there was still some buzz, like the phenomenal, amazing transformation of Steve Carell and completely doing something dead serious. Because, I mean, he had done serious films, like probably the best example was Little Miss Sunshine. He also did a movie way back, which was very good. But those two films had elements of comedy still. While it's more, the films he was in were more serious. Still, comedy was there, whereas Foxcatcher is complete drama. You know, there are moments where you laugh in this film. At least I did, and those I've seen it with have laughed. And I say that because there's this one moment in particular where it's the kind of laughter you just laugh at because it's so awkward and so creepy. You have no other option but to laugh because of how unsettling it is. And it was just, the film is just amazing, I think. But again, by the time it came out, films like The Theory of Everything, Birdman, Whiplash, Interstellar, The Intimidation Game, American Sniper, and other films were in the more main focus. Where Foxcatcher was kind of a big talk about in the film festival circuit after all the film festivals, and it came closer and closer to the November release, virtually went silent, with a little buzz here and there. Like Steve Carell was phenomenal, and Channing Tatum was extraordinary, and Mark Ruffalo was exceptional, and things like that you would hear, like and the kind of critics when they would talk about the film. But you know, sometimes critics are wrong, but you know, they praised this film, at least from what I saw and read. Some critics, they were very great. You know, like they were very positive. And yeah, I'll get more into the awards stuff in a bit, but the plot for Foxcatcher, if you haven't seen it, is Channing Tatum and Mark Ruffalo play wrestlers. Dave Schultz, played by Mark Schultz, played by Channing Tatum, and Dave Schultz, played by Mark Ruffalo. I wanted to say the others around because Channing Tatum is playing Mark. The person he's playing is named Mark, and Mark Ruffalo is playing person Dave. And basically, they're wrestlers, you know, brothers wrestlers, and where Dave Schultz, Ruffalo's character, has found himself in a very good, comfortable situation. He's married. He has kids. You know, he's very comfortable with his life. He likes how things are going. You know, Mark Schultz, Tatum, he just wants something else. He just wants to be really he kind of wants to have his own identity, because it seems like anything with his name is always attributed to his brother's name, because his brother is very well known. The two brothers won Olympic medals and I forget which year they won. 1984. I think so. I don't know. I can't recall correctly. It could have been 1986. But I mean, there's information that I can leave in the link below. I can't recall right off the top of my head, which is that I've seen this movie many times, and it's one of those things when you're trying to recall certain details like that, you just, it's like this is just escape you for the time you really want to talk about it. But anyway, he wants something more, and one day he gets a phone call from Jean Dupont, and he is invited. He has a paid flight out to Pennsylvania to Foxcatcher Farms, and he meets with John Dupont, played by Steve Carell. And as the film goes on, you know, he's talking to him about how he wants America to be great, and how like sporting, how like sports like in the Olympics, like Russia, they have the government pays for the Russians. They get taken care of very well. They're well trained. They get food they would need, as well as their great rooms at the places they would be at when they're competing, and everything's fine for for like the Soviet Union. But over here in America, you know, they don't. The American team don't really get the great treatment that the Soviet Union get. Those wrestlers get, as well as the other, at least wrestlers do. Probably other sports and people who would do those sports in the Olympics may, from the way it's all talked, probably get better treatment than the wrestlers. And basically, John Dupont is going to fund this. He's going to fund American team for Foxcatcher. They will represent America, and basically he wants Mark to join, obviously, and he wants even Dave. Certain things are different from the real events. One thing is, in the film, Dave and Mark are on the farm at the same time, when the reality is, at a certain point, Mark leaves, and after a while, Dave comes to Foxcatcher and stays there for the. I don't want to give too much away because this movie has been out for so long, people probably already know what happens. But even if you've really never even heard of this, maybe you've heard of the name but not the film, I don't really want to spoil anything for you. But basically, throughout the rest of this whole thing, Dave stays there, and there's some stuff that goes on because basically John Dupont is a very mentally ill guy. He was not stable. There's many things that, as I've researched, attribute to this. I think one of it is it's like his mother was very cold. Like, she never really loved him. It seemed like anything he did was just a complete disappointment because he would always do things that she felt was beneath him, and she hated wrestling. She thought he was wasting his time being a coach for wrestling because he actually wanted to be an athlete. He wanted to do what the wrestlers did, but he did know he couldn't. So what would the next best thing be? Well, he'll train them because he's rich. He's a multi-millionaire. You know, the DuPont family is well known. I mean, I've heard of the DuPont family way when I was like little. I really didn't know any of this stuff that went on. But he John DuPont, he and Mark, they kind of like, I guess, clashed a little bit. Basically, he would never leave Mark alone because Mark did very well. He was a great athlete, and he saw him, and he was like gonna be like the star in the film. In the movie, he picks him out, points him out, and he's like, "You have all this talent, and your brother is very talented as well. You know, nothing against Dave Schultz, but if anything, you can be better than Dave at wrestling. You just need a chance to do it, and you will never get that chance unless you kind of let go of Dave, essentially kind of like severing the relationship that they have. And basically, because Dave and Mark moved around a lot as kids, and you kind of get this information in the film about they moved a lot. And essentially, as I researched more, and it isn't says anywhere in the film, but basically, like Dave, like was kind of like a big father to Mark, in that he kind of took care of them while the parents divorced, and they would kind of move around, and they would always be together. So he had this male figure in his life constantly, and Dave would be kind of like, obviously he's his brother, but in a way like a father figure. So he would teach him things that would, kind of like a boy becoming a man would need to know. And so that's kind of a big important thing when John DuPont is saying you kind of need to separate yourself from your brother, which is like, who's also kind of your father figure. If you never let go of that relationship, you will never be as great as you can be. John DuPont is somebody who also very manipulative. He while he is mentally ill, he's also very cunning and smart in that he is very manipulative. He's able to do this and that, and because he's rich, he's able to get like kind of like a collection of wrestlers, because there's a documentary about this in the real Mark was talking about John DuPont and how he would show him around these little places he has, like collection of kind of like shells and stuff, and just kind of like just little odd things that a typical person wouldn't really have a collection of, and he kind of put it like how he's collecting wrestlers, like, and eventually the film, when Dave comes, things get a little worse, and eventually Mark can't handle all this manipulation that's going on with him and John DuPont. He just needs to get out of Foxcatcher, so he does. And then eventually something very terrible happens, and I'll let you watch the movie if you haven't seen it, or or even if you haven't heard of the event, watch the movie and read up on the event, watch this documentary. The documentary is called The Prince of Pennsylvania, a very good documentary, which in retrospect, I'm like, I wish they could have released that with the Blu-ray. That would have been cool as a cool bonus feature. And but yeah, this film is amazing. Even though liberties were taken, it's done to help the story, because otherwise, I think perhaps people would think, oh, there's all this stuff going on. First with Mark Schultz being there, then not being there, and now his brother is there, and there's a lot of stuff. I know that is missing, but also this film originally was supposed to come out in 2013, and the original length, because this is a 2-hour film, the original length of the film was 4 hours long. And so, first off, the film was way too long, and also this is a very slow-paced film. That's another thing. If you haven't seen it, it's a very slow-paced film, but I think this helps it. But also, I could see how this could also turn some people off of the movie, because it is slow-paced. That's kind of like, and while it does pick up at the end, because there is unfortunate event that happens, that did happen in real life too, because this is a true story. If you haven't gathered with me saying all of this between the difference of real life and this, yeah, it's based on a true story. I don't think I would have to say that, but just in case somebody doesn't, no, it is based on a true story, and it's very unfortunate what happened. And this film was well made. It was very well put together. The performances are phenomenal. Channing Tatum did such a great job. I mean, he's like, this is, people know him as like Magic Mike or 21 Jump Street or those type of films. But this movie, man, oh man, some people might think, he can't really act, or he's just this guy that's like all muscular and good looking and this and that. But this is a film that you need to see, because if you thought he was just like some big muscular dude, this guy, he can act. And this film proves it. Mark Ruffalo is phenomenal, as he always is. He gives I think, the best performance of his career. All three of these actors do. And Steve Carell is the person I was so impressed with. He blew me away. I was just like, what? I saw this film twice in theaters, and both times I forgot I was watching Steve Carell. That is how great he was. Now, I'm not saying this will happen to you, but to me, I forgot I was watching it. I really did. I'm like, this. Also, I think a big part of it is because I really didn't know the story. I mean, I actually researched this film, or researched the story, which you can too, obviously. I don't think it's going to really take away from the impact, but I guess I'm just kind of advising you, perhaps just watch the film first and then read about what happened, then watch the documentary, because that way you'll be able to see what was all put in and what was left out of the film, because there's a lot of stuff, again, left out. Because the film was supposed to be 4 hours, which I actually would like to see a 4-hour cut of this movie. The director said very few people would ever really want to see it. I'm probably one of the few, but I really like this movie too. And I like the films Bennett Miller makes. Capote was phenomenal. I know people talk about like Brokeback Mountain should have won Best Picture, and fair enough. I could see why, but in my opinion, I liked Capote better. It's just I just love that film. Again, with Philip Seymour Hoffman, you believe he is Truman Capote. This director is able to get actors that either you wouldn't think of playing the parts that they're playing in his films, and able to get so much out of them. Like Jonah Hill was in Moneyball, he got nominated for an Oscar. Every person nominated for Best Actor, people are nominated for Best Actor in every film so far of Bennett Miller's. And supporting, Capote was supporting actress, the next two, Moneyball and Foxcatcher, supporting actors. He's able to get the best out of best performances of his actors, and able to tell a story that is very interesting and something you would not have thought, like perhaps in a certain event like Foxcatcher, like this, when you actually talk about it at face value, it's like that's kind of perhaps a boring tale, wrestling, and then if you go a little longer about what happens, it's also very dark. Yeah. But the way he makes this film, and all of his films, it's breathtaking. It's really amazing of what he's able to do. I don't know how he does it. I'm just glad he does it. And yeah. Again, so the award shows and stuff again. I think a big thing is why it didn't do well is, aside from it, the buzz going down a lot, and the films that came out later got more exposure for awards like Golden Globes, BAFTAs, SAG, Critics' Choice, Academy Awards. Basically, they just couple things. I didn't really see any promotion at all for this film on TV or anything, like advertisements. I may have seen one, and that was it. Another thing, many people said, like, when they were doing their limited release, because they do that in big cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. I live in Iowa, so that would be the closest I could get to see the film before January if I really wanted to go and see it early. Places like that. I know there's a lot of other big places, but I'm just saying that the ones that come to mind first. And many people were upset, like, you're not gonna show the film for your limited release in cities or states that are very into wrestling. This film was made in Pennsylvania, or not Pennsylvania. Well, the film takes place in Pennsylvania, but Pittsburgh. It was made in Pittsburgh, and people were like, "Why not show it in, in Pittsburgh, or since I live in Iowa or Iowa City, or Wyoming, states and cities that are huge with a wrestling community." And I kind of agree, and it would have been a very better move on the part of Sony Pictures Classics. But even though that may be a big community, and perhaps it would have done better at the box office. And I know box office doesn't really matter for awards, but sometimes if a movie makes so much money, aside from it being like at previous award shows, but if it makes a bunch of money on its limited release, I think then that might perhaps give a film an advantage. Maybe not, but that's just kind of what I've seen here and there. And you know, I think this film should have won awards in every major award circuit. I would have loved to have seen Steve Carell win the Academy Award for Best Actor, as well as Golden Globes and BAFTAs and all that stuff. And for the BAFTAs, they put him in the category for supporting. I know some people are like, well, Channing Tatum was the lead, and here's my thing on that. Steve Carell and Channing Tatum are both the leads. The thing is, once you see John DuPont on screen, it's like Hannibal Lecter. Once Hannibal Lecter is first seen in The Silence of the Lambs, his presence is felt throughout the entire film. Even when he's not on screen, but people just mention his name, it's like he's there. And since this film takes place a lot on where John DuPont lived, his presence is felt practically the entire film. From the moment he is introduced till the end of the film, his presence is there. In my opinion, this is just me. If you've seen the film, you may disagree. If you haven't, you may disagree. But I think it's just the eeriness that Carell was able to put into the character, because he was a very disturbed guy. And I felt from all the research and even video footage I've seen, he accurately portrayed this man for who he was. And there's some stuff on YouTube which people are like, oh, he didn't really act like that. Steve Carell was just terrible. And my thing is, no. In interviews, Steve Carell said he got to see stuff like that where he saw like the outtakes or the stuff nobody was ever supposed to see, where John DuPont was directing the film crew as to what to shoot, how to shoot it, how a certain angle or frame should be shot. And he was just very controlling, and like nobody should ever see like him being that controlling. And he accurately portrayed this man who was very mentally ill, and he did something terrible. And yet, even though he did that, and it's like, that's just unforgivable, at the same time, which I guess I'm kind of giving it away, but I guess I'm kind of wrapping it up now, or I'm going to try to. He accurately portrayed this man as who he was, and I believed he was John DuPont. He was a very sad man. He really just wanted to be accepted. He wanted to be accepted by his mother, be loved by his mother, since she didn't really ever show him love. And then he also wanted to be accepted by the wrestlers who he was coaching. And they all treated him like he was one of them that were peers. And he loved it. And he was happy. Like, for the first time, people felt he was important. He felt for the first time he was like important, and that was like huge to him. And there are scenes in the film where you can see that as the film goes on. It gets darker and darker, and it's not seen as much, but early in the film, you can see that. And I was just blown away by that performance by Carell. And I know I'm going on about Carell as opposed to Ruffalo or Tatum, but there's just, I mean, you know, both of those guys, Tatum and Ruffalo, are phenomenal. I know people thought Tatum should have been nominated for an Oscar. And while I see their point and see where they're coming from, I don't know. I think with Steve Carell, he has a certain entity tied with his name. He is known as a funny man. He does something like Foxcatcher. It's completely, people just double take like, wait a minute, that's him? And it's just, people just take notice of that. Where Channing Tatum is younger, and he has done, a variety of films, so he's not necessarily typecast as much as Steve Carell. But yeah. And again, like for the awards, I think Steve Carell should have won Best Actor. Eddie Redmayne for The Theory of Everything was amazing, phenomenal as well. He won. I still prefer Carell. It's just, as I explained, I believed he was John DuPont so much that I wanted him to see him win. Plus, Eddie Redmayne he's young too, so I guess I'm like, he could do more films and do something where he could get an Oscar one day. Just not necessarily that year, but he won. He beat Steve Carell. And I'm not disappointed. I can't be disappointed because that was a great performance. So I'm kind of like, even if I don't necessarily agree with the decision of Redmayne winning, I understand and I can accept it, and it's fine. It's not one of those that's kind of like, really? He won? He had over Carell or any of the other nominees or people who weren't nominated? They could have been like, really? He won? Wow. No, it wasn't like that, so I can see why Redmayne won. Mark Ruffalo, I wanted him to win as well. But J.K. Simmons won for Whiplash. And again, I can see why. Same thing with Redmayne. Don't necessarily agree with it 100%, but I can see why he won, and it's fine. It was also nominated for Best Director, original screenplay. Those two went to Birdman. And then the final Oscar it was nominated for was for Best Makeup. And that went to the Grand Budapest Hotel, which is a great film, but I don't know. I don't think I agree with that, at least. Out of all of them, that would have had the best chance of it winning an Oscar, and it should have, but that happens. Many people are also shocked. They're like, wow, this was Best Picture worthy. I mean, it wasn't nominated for Best Picture, but, what are you going to do? And that's all I've got for film talk today, tonight, whatever. I don't know exactly what I will talk about next, but I shall find something for the next Film Talk episode. So, till then, see you all later. May the 4th be with you. May the Force be with you.